I'm Rob Bilott. I'm an attorney with the Taft Law Firm in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, and I've been working for the last 24 years or so to help raise awareness about the worldwide threat to human health and the environment from man-made PFAS chemicals. And one of the early steps I took in that regard when I first found out what was happening and learned that this chemical was getting into drinking water in our country. Was I tried to put as much of this information I could together in a letter that I compiled back in March of 2001. So 22 years ago. To summarize what was happening, what I had found out, and asking the governmental agencies to take action to address this chemical. And, it's taken a long time, but here we are 22 years later, and we finally have the US EPA formally announcing that they will regulate this particular chemical in drinking water for the first time, an actual enforceable standard. And starting to take action with some of the related chemicals as well. So it's taken a long time, but we're finally getting there. These chemicals, unfortunately, move rapidly through the environment. They can be dispersed through the air from manufacturing facilities up through the smokestacks, and they get up into the air, and unfortunately, they can fall all over the planet, including in rain. We're finding these chemicals in rainwater. And dispersed widely. It's being found in the rain in Tibet, on tops of mountains. It's being found in the Arctic, in polar ice caps, getting into animals and plants and people all over the planet. This stuff not only moves through the air, it moves through the water. Once it gets into, if it can fall onto the ground or get discharged into rivers and streams or seeps into the ground through landfills or unfortunately, once it gets into the water, it stays there and it moves rapidly. And you end up with pretty massive contamination of groundwater supplies, surface water supplies, drinking water supplies, soil. And then this stuff can be taken up through plants and get into crops and get into wildlife or even domesticated animals or animals that are being used for food. So there's real concern that this stuff not only gets out there, it spreads rapidly and it can impact in our entire environment in numerous ways. These chemicals can get out into our environment in a lot of ways, but the scientists are particularly concerned about exposures through drinking water because that's the most direct route to getting it into us. And that can be some of the highest exposures in people are if it's in our drinking water. So a lot of the activity to date has been to try to identify where is it in the water, what drinking water sources are impacted, and to at least try to stop those ongoing exposures. And folks are only just now starting to try to look into how do we get it out of the soil? How do we get it out of plants? How do you deal with what's in people? This is something that impacts all of us, and not only us, but our children and our grandchildren. I mean, you have to keep in mind, not only are we exposed, but babies being born are being born pre-polluted with these chemicals. And these are chemicals that can have such widespread effect within not only all of us, but the entire population. So it's a real public health concern, and it's a threat to our collective environment.